And good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the third day of this 3-day session. You're in the right place, and it's about 3:50, so we're opening up the session just a minute early so that we can allow people to start joining into the session so that we'll be ready to go in just another minute or so. Hope you're having a great week so far and a really productive time as well. This is, of course, ISACA South Florida's presentation of Standards versus Hackers and Lawmakers, which is presented by Digital Edge as well as their business partners. And today it will be Digital Edge speaking exclusively. And this is, of course, the third of 3 days that we've been doing these 2-hour sessions from 4 to 6. Today will be the same time period from 4 to 6, and we're looking forward to getting started in just another minute as people are joining this session. So I'll go ahead and share the next slide to make sure that I do some very brief housekeeping announcements. The first is to make sure that I introduce myself. My name is Rob Valdez. I'm currently serving as the president of ISACA South Florida. It's my pleasure to be with you this afternoon. Also on the line with us here co-hosting is Sandra Paras. She is a director at large for our chapter, as well as having served many other positions previously. And we're grateful to Sandra for joining us today to co-host this session. And then you've seen in the other days, Ryan Barras was joining these sessions as well, the director of programming. He's not on this session, but of course, he did have quite a hand in contributing to the planning and preparation for this session. So we're very grateful to him as well. As a reminder, this is an interactive Zoom session, which means that ideally we recommend that you use the Zoom localhost native client to have the best experience right in that desktop application and interact with the chat, Q&A module, and polling if and when those are available so that it's the best and smoothest possible experience. If you are not able to participate in that specific way, then Chrome, the web client, is oftentimes the next best way to have highest level of functionality and availability and reliability in the Zoom session. So of course, your questions can be entered into the Q&A module throughout the presentation. Michael will address those as he sees fit. And then you can also use the chat to interact with Michael during the presentation as well. He'll interact with those chat comments as he sees fit also. So now we'll go ahead and get into the actual content of what you're really here for today, today's presentation by Digital Edge. And this is going to run, like we said, for approximately the next 2 hours, and then we'll finish and we'll have wrap up. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen at this time so that Digital Edge can get started and take it away. So thank you very much, Michael and Jana. Please go ahead and take it away with today's presentation.
Can you please allow me to share my screen? I don't think I'm allowed.
Oh, I apologize. You should be allowed to now. There you go. Might take just a second.
Let me know if you could.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Hello, everybody. It's a challenging day to keep you entertained for 2 hours, and it is stressful, and I'll show you why. We're going to be talking about public cloud today and compliance in public cloud. There are a bunch of different contradicting subjects in the title, but we're going to be basically talking about 3 large aspects of public cloud and compliance and security. I'll try to be entertaining So, and you will see why it's going to be bumpy, because I hit a roadblock today. I could maneuver around it, but it will be very um, vivid example of how bumpy life in public cloud could be. So we are going to be mentioning today AWS, but it will apply with to Azure and Google Cloud. I just prepared uh, some things for AWS, but it could be easily applied to all other public offers. So let's go. Number one, I'm going to touch on the subject of zero trust, and overall, it's a very interesting subject, and that would be zero trust, my zero trust, and my personal version of zero trust, and my personal understanding of zero trust. When you get that material, watch this video, because it's really funny. This guy, I'm like following him, and great guy, and he is really funny. He's almost like IT stand-up comedian, but very serious guy. So he's saying that access management is really key, and he said that this presentation was during a zero trust uh, large conference, and he said that try to find anyone in this conference center, two providers of zero trust who would define zero trust the same way. And he's like, I bet you will not be able. So it will be like 20-30 providers, and they will all define zero trust differently. So that was funny. And I kind of agree, because zero trust is more like an idea. And he was like teasing and making jokes about people like, okay, we have like zero trust in the box. So it's somewhat a controversial subject, but I wanted to throw a poll. Question number one. So if you guys are learning about zero trust, start implementing zero trust, finish implementing zero trust, or don't care about zero trust at all. So if you could throw your answers in the chat, just to see what audience think about it. I would be, it would be fun to listen to someone who finished implementing zero trust, because it sounds. I mean, if you want, if you have an ability to like raise hand and unmute, because it would be cool to hear the story about finished zero trust. Because again, like my position, yeah, most of people replying A, that learning zero trust, and the one was C, finished. And I'm kind of, I want to say anything it could be, but zero trust is more philosophy, and the way you look at the implementation of your infrastructure, or kind of like a guidance or a roadmap. And I would argue that I don't think it's possible to finish it, because constantly companies are changing their posture, their how they do things. And to me, it's like you constantly can think about it and constantly improve this. So let's go. And again, this is like my zero trust. Let me start a little bit with the history, and I'm sorry if I'm, wow, I have capital C from Howard Forrester. It would be cool if you could speak at some point and explain how you did that. But let me run through the presentation first. So before, we had kind of like standard perimeter-based security, and it's pretty simple. Bunch of applications. We have Active Directory as your kind of centralized facility to manage users and rights and credentials and whatever. Everything is in the office, and we know that if people are in the office, we can trust them, and they can. An Active Directory would kind of govern the access. Then data centers started being introduced to the whole mix, and the whole office work started being kind of distributed, and Active Directory were replicated to different geographical areas, and these walls became like more virtual, and it was still perimeter, like one virtual perimeter or multiple virtual perimeters, VPNs, whatever it is. But we could say that if you are in there, we could trust, and we could you know we could trust this user. And then something happened. I'm sorry, I'm reading the chat. I got it. It would be cool to hear from Howard later on. So basically something happened is we started seeing like totally new companies, and especially in like startup world, when we're like asking how you guys like manage your access, and they say, oh, we basically totally virtual company, and what we do, we use Salesforce for sales, we use QuickBook Online for accounting, we use AWS for our applications, we use GitHub, Slack, whatever it is. And we use like G Suite for, and like how do you manage onboarding, termination, whatever's the process? We small company, 10 people, we could just go and create those accounts where they need to be created. So what is and we were like a little bit in shock, because there is no like centralized a database of users, or maybe that database was like HR would have some kind of like an Excel spreadsheet, and they were using you know that Excel spreadsheet as a directory service. And then we saw when the company was going from like 1 person to like 200 people, and that was like a huge pain, because they were missing like very and I'm not saying that Active Directory would be a right solution, or actual Active Directory would not be a right solution for these people, but basically they needed something to unite this organization as an organization, and that HR or IT or whomever could look at all the people in the organization and understand what access they have anywhere. And when these companies kind of like grow rapidly, it's very painful for them to kind of like go back and figure out how to manage their identities, how to manage access. Everything becomes like very messy, and so when they add users and they add applications simultaneously, the complexity of the relationship between users and applications grow exponentially and become totally unmanageable. So and certainly there are vendors in this area to help to solve this problem, and we certainly listened to JumpCloud yesterday, and there are like other providers of the same service. JumpCloud certainly is the best because they are friends and partners, but you know, there are other solutions, and certainly, you know, depending on the this table is basically to show our analysis, because one of the client of ours who grew rapidly from like 15-20 people to 200 people, they needed to implement something very quickly. And we selected JumpCloud, implemented JumpCloud, and the implementation was painful because nobody knew who's controlling what groups people belong to. So even when decision was made that you know, we gotta implement JumpCloud, it was very hard to add their applications. It was problem with compatibility with Dropbox, for example. And but we went to a position when basically all onboarding and all user management became from like one single sign-on, and life became easier because you could control when you implement this access control through like single dashboard. It became much easier to enable two-phase authentication, for example, or to enable endpoint controls, or to enable uh, MDM, mobile device management, or to enable void policies, void control over void devices. And we had lots of arguments and lots of questions from employees. Oh, listen, I'm joking now, but it's kind of, oh, listen, you wanna put your software on my device, but what if I want to watch porn? Are you going to be scanning? Are you going to be collecting this? And this conflict between privacy and control over the device is like huge subject. And it's very important to select the right single sign-on provider, or this access directory provider, because these questions will pop up later on during the implementation. And a strong partnership with one of these people for us is a good thing. So we specifically brought these two vendors, Sophos and JumpCloud, into our presentation this time, because we use this combination of Sophos and JumpCloud to manage specifically loosely organized companies that are mostly like new startups, or company that decided to after or during pandemic to become 100% virtual. This combination works very nicely together to make sure that whomever is connecting to the applications that you define, they are secure, they are identified, and you control that endpoint device that is used to connect to corporate applications. And that when user connects to these corporate applications, we know the device is not having viruses, or we recognize the device, we know who connects. And again, it's challenging. So let's go back a little bit, and let me show a few examples that are mostly how you could. So basically, zero trust, from my opinion, is first access control, but also it's a segmentation. So like if one application got hit, there is no left-right movement of exploitation, or left-right movement is very hard, and you kind of control that access, and you isolate your informational systems from being penetrated if one system got infected or penetrated. So bad guys, bad actors cannot move left, right. So let's say, so what you could do, there are like multiple ways of doing the segregation access control. So, and I'll offer you a way of thinking about it. So one of the good approach is information classification base. So as I showed you yesterday, that spiral, how we implement cybersecurity frameworks for our clients, we said that first is governance, then it is then there is information classification, and then the risk based on the information classification. So we are identifying, because in cybersecurity, what do we protect? We protect information. We don't protect forests or water or lives. We protect information. So information classification is a cornerstone of the whole cybersecurity program. And I would say that information classification should be naturally written by informational systems. So you have accounting, and you have, I don't know, QuickBooks or Great Plains or whatever SAP, whatever it is. So you define those informational systems. Then you have, I don't know, sales, you have CRM, you have, so where information sits, you define that information classification by that. And then traditional way of doing things, you basically put everything in one perimeter. So and as we described before, traditionally it was one either virtual perimeter or physical perimeter, but everything was inside. So the new view is you have to build perimeters around each application, and you control access to each one. So if you decide where to allow users to provide access to, and you basically secure each application separately. So bump some cybersecurity incident within one application would not create exposure to all of them. It could be functional based. It could be just your application, and you separate those applications into different perimeters, and you specifically with public cloud offers, it's very easy to create a situation when you build separate accounts, different perimeters for the application. So when companies are migrating to public clouds, we suggest to like rethink it a little bit and do deployments function by function, and segregate those functions in different accounts, different access groups, things like that. It could be also what we could see is segregation or segmentation by client base. So what we also offer, if let's say a company is processing some kind of records for like multiple accounts, and they had like different folders, let's say, where they put reports, it's much easier to, and you have information classification, and you have retention policies, things like that. And we had an example of a healthcare client that is basically dealing with medical records and insurance information of their clients. So and they are cyclical, they are contractual to perform work and then give the results of the work back to the client, and basically like figure out how to delete. And we said, why don't you just replicate your environment for each individual client? It's easier to assign your staff because employees, so let's say they have 100 employees, so employee 525, 55 is working on this client, and like another set of employees are working in different clients. So it's very easy to with cloud to deploy similar infrastructure based on the client needs, and just allow users that are working on this specific client to access to this infrastructure. Now, when you need to delete the information, you just basically destroy the whole account. Or in terms of AWS, you could destroy VPC. It's better to create an organization in different account. Also with software-defined infrastructure, you could code your deployments, and we even call them bubbles. So each deployment for individual client will be almost the same and follow best practices. And as it is coded, you don't need to go back and verify that each environment that you build is in compliance with all the HIPAA requirements. So and certification is much easier in this case, because you don't need to prove that you do all the best practices for client A or B or C. You just have to make sure that you run and you prove that you control over that code, and changes to these codes are approved, and then basically your cybersecurity becomes that code. And we will be talking about it a little bit later. Sorry for the small size of these, but basically it's also a segmentation example in AWS where you have office or remote users, and you basically have like different functions different functions of the company, and and this is an example of an all-time Active Directory based user management. So what you could do is you basically create master Active Directory and then replicate that Active Directory database into each individual segment, but control access to each individual segment using AWS different tools to make sure that they don't communicate with each other. So basically, user can access one thing or another thing, but these VPCs cannot access to each other. So this is like another example of possible segmentation. I have another poll question set. It's about implementing. I just wanted to make sure, because some people calling, top 5, top 10, top 20, 30, whatever, doesn't matter. I'm just curious if any of you are implementing, implementing any CIS benchmarks or planning, or they included in a bigger framework, or you don't care. So if you could. Yeah, interesting mix. Let me give you my view on the whole thing, and I don't know how much you guys are and how heavy how you concentrating when you say that CIS benchmarks are included in a bigger framework. I see that requirements for such things in the bigger frameworks are very hazy, so they're not really like prescribing certain rules how it needs to be implemented. So I just want to say that we're going to be speaking a little bit about CIS benchmarks and CIS, why CIS is important for the cloud in this section. But I just wanted to go back a little bit to zero trust. So like this is my zero trust view, and it's about access control. I just wanted to close that, and I wanted to make these few very simple statement. So to me, zero trust is vision and architectural direction. Segmentation is very important, and access control to each of these segments is very important. And then the company should decide how to segment those things, those islands of trust. It's either by, as I said, by information classification, or by function, by department, or by a client. These three. I'm sure you could come up with something else, but this is very, very, very important to set the philosophy and follow the philosophy. Is it possible for us to, I don't know if you want to explain your comments about zero trust implementation? I think, yeah, I'm looking to that person who said that they finished, and I think the comment was
Come forward.
yeah, is it possible to give, I mean, if you want, if not, it's okay. Because I think the comment was that there is a direction and there is a policy to implement zero trust everywhere, but I was kind of questioning that is finished. I got it. Okay, cool. Sounds good. we cannot disclose this. So yeah, let's skip it. I understand. So I guess the comment is this. So it's a set policy to implement it, but I guess you could agree with me that it's kind of like never-ending story because projects are coming, and every time when project gets started, you have to review possibilities of zero trust. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody is kind of like on the same page, because as you know, like ISO, for example, there is a requirement in ISO when you start a project, you need to review cybersecurity impact and risks. And when you finish the project, you should also make a note about considering additional possible risks when you kind of put this project in production. But I also would say, with as Howard advised, that you know, it could be another item in each project plan. Consider zero trust possibilities of implementing zero trust for this project. So it's kind of like a cool idea. So let's go back to CIS. So we kind of closed that zero trust. I gave you my opinion. It's again, it's a philosophy. It's never ending. It's all about segregation and access control. There are tools to help to establish that access control and single sign-on. And you need to control, instead of controlling perimeter, now you have to control and identify that users that is accessing your application. And segregation could be done by different reasons or properties or whatever. So I gave you an example by information classification, by function, and by client. It could be something else, I don't know, but it would be really nice to have part of your zero trust strategy to write a policy. The company has a philosophy that we are separating things by this or by that. It would be really good, because when IT brings on another project, you could push them and say, this is commitment of the company to zero trust. How are we going to specifically protect that application or that function or that information, and how we can separate it based on that whatever policy. So another very quick thing is that with public cloud capabilities to create things, let's call them bubbles or small perimeters, it's very easy to create them. So it becomes much more feasible to create those islands of trust or perimeters of trust instead of one big perimeter. You need to buy a separate firewall for specific functionality. So that's why zero trust becomes more and more popular, because it's much easier to create, and you could even script it. So I think I'm done. We may come back to this item later on, but let's talk about CIS and why it's important. So you saw that slide yesterday, and I was suggesting that frameworks that we use: tactical, it's OWASP and CIS, and strategical, it's NIST, ISO, whatever it is. We could speak about ISO as an example. I think like everybody knows it inside out. But it's interesting that there are smaller on the granularity, on smaller scale standards, and we take OWASP for development shops, and to understand that security of the custom applications is done properly. and CIS is overall for the configurations, for hardening, because look, like technically your public cloud implementation is your configuration of your virtual data center, and whatever you put in there is application. So you could make mistakes of configuration, or you could make mistake in the application, so application itself becomes vulnerable. So these two, call them frameworks, whatever, libraries, whatever you call them, but they are very, very important for tactical defense of your virtual infrastructure, or whatever you call it. Now, this is an example from ISO, and this is technical vulnerability management to prevent exploitation of technical vulnerabilities, and very, very vague requirement. Information about technical vulnerabilities of informational system being used shall be obtained in timely fashion. The organization exposure, blah blah blah. I'm not gonna read with my accent. So you probably know that this is like very, very, and ISO is very, very hazy. But I would say this is one of the most important. Certainly, it's important how we have a list of all the hardware, how we secure our desks, and we don't have paper with important information just laying on the desk. I mean, this is all important, but most of the cybersecurity breaches are happening over here, not because someone came and stole a piece of paper from your table, or unattended devices are not secured. Most of the whatever we see huge cases, they are happening because lack of this, and all those large frameworks like ISO NIST may be a little bit more prescriptive, but I would argue that it's still very vague. So you must use something more prescriptive, something who would define these best practices, and we feel that CIS is very very prescriptive. So I'm taking those quotations from like different things. I don't remember who said that, Gartner or whatever it is, that most cloud breaches are due to misconfigurations, and we could agree. I mean, if you disagree, you could always throw it in the chat, and I'm watching the chat. I'll be reading Q&A a little bit later, but chat is always open, so we could discuss it. And we are getting to public cloud because public cloud providers are saying, oh, we're taking care of this for you, we're taking care of that for you, and but still we are getting these breaches in the public cloud. And what it means for me, and if left thing is Gartner or someone like that, right thing is mine. Shared responsibility is hard. So when Azure or AWS or any of these guys are saying, "Oh, now your life is easier," jump on us. It's partially true. It's partially true, and it's hard to manage. So why it's hard to manage? The reason why people are going to public cloud is not cost saving. It's not. It's basically agility, it's capabilities. So if we live in traditional data center world and we need to start encrypting things, we gotta figure out encryption, or we gotta buy self-encrypting hard drives, and we gotta make sure that we're doing it right, and it's the whole effort. And let's say guys like FINRA or SEC or any of those 3-4 letters agencies create new requirements that would be hard for us to follow and implement. And if you're sitting in a large public cloud, they do it as a checkbox and it's easy. So it's like enablement. They're doing things so people can get things faster and easier, but it adds agility. But this agility adds a layer of possibilities for mistakes and a lack of visibility and lack of control. So it feels like you have a control, but at the same time, if you misconfigure, if you let developers, for example, run your AWS or Azure or Google Cloud configurations, then they can just, with a few clicks, they can screw up a lot. And I'm not saying there are guys that are doing it right, scripted, and everything, but for the organization, it's very hard to control what happened, because someone could basically disable MFA or enable MFA or create a user that has excessive rights. So like Capital One breach example vividly show how misconfiguration can create huge problem. So it's very hard to enforce controls in public clouds today, just because of the agility, just because that even knowing well, it's very hard to make sure that things have rights to access correct things. It's hard to enforce the control. We write the controls, we write the technology, policies, procedures for these controls in ISO environment. It's very hard to enforce them because of the agility of the clouds. So, and AWS basically created a philosophy. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, where they say, oh, we have this conformance pack, and what they basically they take CIS benchmarks. I'm sure you guys know what CIS is. Basically, non-for-profit organization that analyze and mistakes and best practices and create benchmarks. I think I have it somewhere downloaded. I'm pretty sure you can just go there and download these benchmarks, and there are probably like somewhere around 50 of them for AWS. And again, I'm talking about AWS only as a reference point, because they have benchmarks for different clouds and different situations. Just go there, take a look if you didn't. But people are saying that you guys are implementing, so I'm pretty sure you're familiar with that. And that AWS is trying to go back and map their benchmarks to into their own world and into their configuration rules. And basically AWS came up with conformance pack. You could take a look. You could still go by CIS benchmarks, but you could also use that AWS conformance pack would be probably the same result. Also, I can tell you a live example. We did hardening of an environment of one of our clients in April, and they launched another client based on the images that were hardened by us in August. And we used not CIS top 10, but AWS, not CIS benchmarks, but we used AWS internal tooling for the same thing. And it discovered many more, and clients started complaining that we already did hardening, and now it's not hardened again. So number one, CIS changed their requirements, and AWS even made them more demanding, more things are checked, and certainly some patches were missing, and some configuration was missing. So what I'm saying is constantly moving target. And you could go by CIS, or you could go by AWS tooling. It's all good, but you have to do it, and you have to do it periodically. Now, for vulnerability management, people say that only first 5 CIS controls could successfully mitigate 85% of attacks. It could be a little bit markety, but I can believe in this because these recommendations are so simple and so easy to implement. And we may ask why are not implemented? Like like large companies, they have strong cybersecurity groups, and why they, with all these resources, why they are not implementing those things. And some people say that 10 would address 95. I don't know. It could be markety things, but you could Google and see who is saying this. It doesn't really matter. But it could be not 85. It could be 80 or whatever. But they definitely help. So why it's so hard to implement them and protect 85% of attacks? So the problem is the cloud velocity. Cloud has velocity, cloud has that agility, and it goes very fast. So we need to throw new system. We already discussed it, that the agility is one of the selling factor for cloud implementation, for going to public cloud. So clouds are mostly adapted for enablement, and that agility adds challenges to manageability. It's very hard to control who changed it, what was changed, and if this change create additional risk. Yeah, we could set up monitors, we could use AWS config, we could cloud trails, whatever the tooling, and again, I'm not talking about AWS specifically, but it could be enabled, and lots of things could be enabled and controlled, but it's very hard to see if the change presented another layer of risks. So and it becomes a question how to control those changes at maximum velocity. And my argument is that it's almost impossible doing it traditional way. So it's not a chain of attack, but kind of example of Capital One breach. There is no poll question, but it could be interesting if you know deeply what happened with Capital One. Just put 1 there or plus in chat. Just want to see. Yeah, some people know. Yeah, okay. So basically, server-side request forgery gave access to execution ability on the server, and then server had IAM role to access buckets, and the data was exfiltrated. In my opinion, one of the biggest mistakes, in security and administration, one of the biggest thing is to tell admins that you have to separate security function with like application function. It has to be separation of functionality, separations of duties, basically. So I have very weird feeling when people are putting web firewalls right inside Apache that is processing the same web requests. To me, it's kind of weird. To me, it's like, if you guys implement application firewalls, it has to be a separate module. It should be sitting outside. It's better to run a different application system. But again, this is my preferences. But but try to control in a large organization with a bunch of people working on the same time, on the same technology or on the same deployments. Try to control these things. So I would argue it's almost impossible. Another polling question about coding in AWS. If you guys familiar with you know, command line interface, not hands-on. Yeah. All right, cool. I just want to, yeah, I just want to explain. I didn't know if I had to explain, but yeah. So basically, what it is all those cloud offers, before they do these GUIs, and what's really cool for us is before we had to buy servers, put them on, put firewalls, connect them with cables. Today, you basically have a website, and based on website, you could virtually build those data centers with a click, click, click. But what's more amazing is that before they create those functionalities to build those virtual environments or virtual data centers, they make it as a API, or they made it so they can control it over command line with the code basically. So those GUIs, those buttons, they come after, but they enable all the functionality through coding. And you know, strong people, they basically know how to manage things like AWS or Azure or whatever through coding. And how it works, you basically start your account, you create your account, and then you get your root access. And after root access, you could create users with different roles. And for a user, you could create a certificate, and you could allow a user to download the certificate, and then you basically put that certificate in your computer, download command line, so it looks like PowerShell, or it looks like normal DOS prompt, and you basically type whatever, like AWS command, and you could do whatever you could do in GUI. You could do the same way using these command lines. And also they publish APIs, so whomever has this code and whomever has access to this certificate, and whomever has rights to do certain things can write the code almost like a script, almost like a language, and they can fully control and do whatever needs to be done with the code. So what happens is, so one of the CIS best practices is that root account must be secured by MFA. So you could technically create a little scriptlet and query of the root user and see if MFA is enabled or not. So you will hit the AWS with that code, provide the certificate, AWS will reply, and you could analyze and say, and you could write that monitoring thing that would you know, monitor if someone would by mistake disable MFA, it would you know, send an alert, like your outside thing that would be probing your configuration, your software configuration of your virtual environment would detect that someone disabled it. Also, what you could do, you could have your CloudTrail, for example, and you could have alerts and saying that, okay, if someone would do it, AWS would detect it and send you an email. Usually, this monitoring is done by tools that are kind of like sitting outside of your environment, but it's all philosophical. But I wanted to make a very, very important point here. Yesterday, what you see on the left-hand side we were developing the cybersecurity policies where we were saying root password must be protected by MFA, and we are doing this, and we are training people not to disable it, enable it, and whatever. So it's all like Microsoft Word or any other like text document. So what is possible today with this scripting is instead of writing these policies, you could write policies, security policies as the code. I don't know if I got the right example or not, but we could say that we could write a code that would deploy your environment as I mentioned before in zero trust. Let's say you deploy additional um, virtual infrastructure for each individual client. You could code that, as I called it, bubble, and make sure that all your cybersecurity policies are written in that, not in that Microsoft Word, but in that code. And this is like very important because cybersecurity becomes a code today, and it's like total normality today. Cybersecurity becomes a code, and your policy could become a code. And we are certainly moving to that direction from physical data centers to software-defined data center and software-defined policies and software-defined security. And you may understand and appreciate the complexity of it, but at the same time, like when you have, again, like Microsoft Word document is sitting somewhere in compliance folder, and you could tell people to go and look at it and make sure that everything is done by these policies. And if you compare it to capabilities of the code to go and verify that these policies, or to deploy this policy every time when you build things, I think it's like very, very great capabilities and opportunity to improve a relationship between cybersecurity policies written in document to like real to reality of our lives. Because I always had a problem with notion that okay, like today, like ISO cybersecurity policies and procedures, they're basically like bureaucracy. And the reply was and yeah, I'm on this side of, because I understand the compliance requirements, and some cybersecurity professionals are saying, oh, listen, we just have to do things right based on our experience, forget these policies and procedures, because they're totally kind of irrelevant. They're sitting somewhere. I mean, they're relative, but loosely relevant. But how do we make sure that we live and breathe by these policies? Here we go. You write them as a code. So I think it's a great opportunity to finally marry policies and procedures with the reality of virtual data centers. And certainly, it's you could write these things, and you could make sure you could write your own probes that your policies and procedures are enforced. But it's very hard to do it, because new capabilities, like cloud providers are creating new capabilities. CIS create new best practices, and configurations are changing all the time. So it's very hard to do it manually. And when you define your infrastructure as a code, when you define your policies and procedures as a code, it's a good thing. But also you have to like verify. And instead of doing like manual audits, it's much easier to use technology. It's impossible today to verify all, even if you know all the benchmarks, CIS benchmarks and CIS rules by heart. It's very hard to manage and audit them. And this is where tools, whatever, I just put a few of them, and certainly I mentioned Sophos that was presenting day one. Also, there are like Amazon internal tools. There are a bunch of them, and I apologize if I didn't mention some tools that you guys like, but you got the idea. So for example, I can tell you that Nessus is like very powerful, and you could use CIS benchmarks, and you could load them. There are CIS native tools, and sometimes they are not like really effective for managing to probe AWS configurations. But you could use Nessus to basically load the same CIS benchmarks in Nessus, and we have very good examples when Nessus is much more much more suitable to pull to compare CIS benchmarks with whatever is configured. So it's kind of like, I would say, a standard de facto to for cybersecurity experts. Why did I put it here? Yeah. So again, I just wanted to bring your attention to the fact that those large frameworks, they are okay, but that simple statement from ISO for vulnerability management, if you don't have standard framework how to verify and how to check those vulnerabilities, and what to use to check these vulnerabilities, it will be like almost impossible, and it will be almost impossible to manage those vulnerabilities. And if you don't have strong technology, it would be almost impossible to make sure that nobody would change things and open or introduce additional risk to your organization if you don't have a strong technology that that would help you to implement controls of the cybersecurity controls. Guys, I offer, I ran through 2 segments. If you could throw your opinion on my views in the chat, and also if you could take 10 or maybe even like 15 minutes, because I have only 1 section. Again, very practical. If you want, I can share materials with you how to configure Nessus, for example, to run CIS benchmarks, or how to use the CIS benchmarks. Like, ask me questions or comment on whatever I said, and if you are okay, I will take 15 minutes break. Please comment in the chat. I see questions coming out, so like, please keep keep asking. We'll get back to them closer to the end. And now it is 5:02. If you're okay with this, let's come back with fresh coffee at 5:15. Hi guys, talk to you 5:15.
All right. Thanks, Michael.
And I think we're back, Michael. Hi.
Hi guys. Yeah. Okay, so it was a question in Q&A about how to start. Do you guys hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, good. So how to start dealing with coding. So I put again based on AWS, and I had that questionnaire asking who's hands-on because I'm not. I'm yeah. I know some stuff, but I certainly have better people in my organization. But basically, these three links that I put is to start to basically enable command line interface, and then how to configure, and some basic, like if you go through these three links, you could kind of start throwing configuration. One second, why did I lose? You could configure CLI, and then you could start playing with it, and like your goal to get your like how many S3 buckets you have. But first you have to certainly have an account. Then inside the account you have to create a user, and then you have give user the right permissions. You will see in the articles, and then you would have to generate a key pair for this user. Then you download that key and you install it on your computer, and then you download that CLI. It's basically like, and you run it from command prompt, and that's it. And then you start basically using commands to pull your configurations, to create stuff. It's basically like normal kind of discovery. Or just YouTube it, and they will. Today they have like everything on YouTube. So another poll question, if you guys familiar with NIST, and this is where drama starts. If you guys, if anyone is familiar with AWS NIST Quick Start, if you could. Maria Isabel said that she's familiar with a Quick Start. Oh, one second, I'm sorry. Yeah, resume sharing. Yeah. Nice. 2 people, at least. All right, cool. So, nice, 3 people. Yeah, guys, who answer A? Did you try to use it? Because this is where drama starts. I had a presentation. I had the full-blown presentation based on quick starts, and NIST. And today I was like, let me look at it again. And these are my like first presentation. I'm starting this presentation, and yeah, it's pretty cool. There is a quick start, and basically it says that it address 400 controls of NIST 800-53, and all others. It's automatically deploy the environment, and I played with it. I look at this quick start, and basically what quick start is a set of those commands that we were discussing as a script to basically automatically deploy the environment. And I went and I'm like, okay, I have the presentation, cool. And then boom, I went to the I wanted to see if they created something new, and I got 404. So basically AWS discontinued this quick start, and I couldn't find it, and I don't know why. I asked our rep what's going on with it. I didn't receive a reply yet, but this shows you that all these public environments are so dynamic, so rapid, so agile that things are changing like under your shifting, the sand is shifting right under your feet. So I had the whole presentation, and yesterday I found out that I don't have the presentation. But I created presentation based on the on another example, which is also cool. So I will be able to show you things. But again, I wanted to tell you about these quick starts. It's pretty simple. It's basically a library of these infrastructure as a code things. And these are public libraries. You could basically go download the code and execute it, and bam, you got your environment. And you could in AWS, I didn't look what Google and Azure has. Again, this is only for reference. I'm not pushing AWS in any ways, but basically when I started looking for any support of NIST in AWS, I just got a bunch of slides like this, and people are suggesting, okay, NIST is a framework, and we have technologies, and they are mapping up. So this is like NIST domain protect, and these are the technologies that you could use to achieve this. And it was no reference to NIST whatsoever. And I was like, really kind of, what am I gonna do? And then I basically found a HIPAA quick start, and I think it's a good way to introduce what it is. And I basically schlepped a few slides together just to cover for what I had. But let me show you what it is. So basically, this is part of the code. I just did a screenshot. I downloaded it in a notepad, and this is the code to create this. Okay. And if you basically search for quick starts in AWS, and you select one, whatever you like. So this one they suggest is cover lots of compliances with HIPAA, and this is the diagram that code would create this. Now, these are the highlights of what that would offer. So automatically, without thinking, without verifying that your staff knows what they do, it's automatically create two availability zones. So you could see that production has these two availability zones. That environment separation. So it automatically creates management, production, development. It creates a proper network configuration, including compliance logging, HIPAA compliance logging for all accesses, like access control, like network access control, things like that. It automatically create rules for communication between the VPCs in the environment, and again, all the logging enabled. it automatically configure CloudWatch and AWS Config and CloudTrail to record things that are HIPAA required. And it also automatically create access control and alerting for you. So it's really cool because these templates are available. They are freely available, and the question was how to start. You could basically download it, and you could just learn what this code is saying. So now, what is interesting, they also give you a matrix of it's basically like Excel spreadsheet. They are showing HIPAA requirements, and they're saying that this environment will cover these aspects of HIPAA. And with NIST framework, what I saw, they're basically mapping. I didn't have time to research this properly because I didn't. Again, it was like a road bump for me with this discontinuing of NIST quick start. But NIST was saying this piece of configuration in the script would address NIST control this and that. And this the similar Excel spreadsheet would show what AWS would cover for you in NIST compliance. So it's very cool. Instead of creating like your own or trying to figure out, just go and find quick start, learn, customize it, and just deploy. So it'll save so much time. So takeaway, I just wanted to say again three things. Zero trust is a journey, and all the considerations that I mentioned before. That automation is a must. Before we had those written documents, now we should have it as a code. And quick starts and best practices could be obtained and learned and used, and it would be really good to have your company would create your own library, put it in Git repository, control over that Git repository, and make all the changes based on this. So let me read. You said that the quick start libraries are publicly available. Are there any legitimate sources that they can be downloaded from? Obviously, you don't know any random library. Yeah, the thing is that technically they are free, and they are in AWS. I don't know. Let me try to reshare because I think I'm sharing presentation only. But let's play a little bit. 1 second. Share screen. Hope I don't have porn over here. AWS free starts. This is what I was looking for in the morning, and it's basically boom, not available. And this is the catalog. This is the catalog of restarts, and you could say HIPAA. HIPAA properly. Is it HIPAA like this? Yeah. Yeah, here we go. I use this one. So this is the guide, how to use it, who developed it, who creates it. It's basically like open source, but not open source of the application or library. It's open source of the infrastructure. So like I wanted to emphasize, this is what I showed you. And this is the whole kind of like explanation, what it gives you, how to plan the deployment, whatever it provides. And I'm pretty sure it says what organization created it, and who is responsible for maintaining the code. And you could certainly I don't remember where is the link to download it, but it's basically full-blown explanation what it is and how how it needs to be done. And yeah, here we go. Git repository. We could basically. My computer might be a little bit yeah. So you download the whole thing, whatever. But I think some ways. Yeah, I think I still have no. Deployment guide. There is a. One second. Anyway, there is a script somewhere that would be. So it's templates. Yeah. So if you open this, it would give you like code. You could read it and figure out what it does, and so I would highly recommend to learn and go through through these templates. Basically, this is all I wanted. If we have more time, I'll show you a few more things. But please ask questions. Let's go through Q&A.
Great, Michael. Okay, let's see if we got some questions that come in either through the question and answer module or in the chat. Either way, we invite this time period for questions, whether it's actually, since this is a good opportunity, since it is day 3, if anybody had questions about any of the respective days, and since Michael kind of helped architect the entire presentations, if you have any questions, comments, or feedback about any of those comments or any of those topics, it's probably better said, then we can certainly field those now. And while we're on it, something that Michael and Yana thought might be helpful is if we also solicited your feedback regarding which of the topics you actually enjoyed the most. So I'm going to go ahead and launch a poll right now. And this is a poll about topics. And the question is, which were your favorite topics during this session? This is a 3-day session, obviously, that I'm referring to at this point, right? And so there's day 1, the legal landscape and cybersecurity, as well as cyber risk management frameworks. And then day 2, how to be secure from the first user, as well as practical cyber risk management examples from the frameworks. And then day 3, examples of zero trust in AWS, as well as we just spent some time going over compliance in AWS, a well-architected framework and approach. So we'll go ahead and allow just a couple more seconds for people to respond to which were their favorite topics. This is not a single answer question. You're actually capable of choosing more than one answer. If that's relevant, then you can choose as many as you think are the things that you were enjoying the most. And we'll go ahead and make sure that we share this with Michael and Yana so that they can make future presentations as meaningful and as enjoyable as we can for this type of feedback and interaction. I'll go ahead and leave this open just for another couple of seconds longer as we're gathering some additional responses. And it looks like we've got 65, almost 70% respondents and participation in this. So we'll go ahead and close it out. And I'll actually share the results. Oh, well, actually, there's still a couple more coming in. I'll share the results. And so we can see that which were the topics that were enjoyed the most. And it looks like,
happy.
Yeah, there we go. The risk management frameworks, Michael, were and Yana were very much enjoyed, as well as the current legal landscape. Yeah, that was
this is Sophos presentation, right?
Yes. And then let's see, how to secure from the first user, practical cyber risk management, and then so yeah, especially on the first day, those were especially engaging topics that people got a lot out of. So that's very helpful to know, and we
Nice.
thank you very much.
Hopefully we didn't totally suck, but yeah, thank you very much. Guys, I just wanted to, and I'll send it, I'll share it with the chapter, but we have these funny slides where we you know, show kind of like karate bouts, and we have multiple things when we analyze previous breaches, what happened and why. You could certainly research them yourself. And we are saying, if let's say someone implement any of the cybersecurity frameworks fully, would they prevent the breach? And we have like multiple examples, and we say that like these, for example, like undecided, if you know, like NIST or ISO or whatever it is, high trust would help. And we have those you know, decisions. If you know, if fully implemented cybersecurity framework would protect in such situations. Again, it's opinion. We will share it with the chapter. Chapter will send for you. It's more like a fun to review what happened and analyze backward to see what was not done properly, or if you know, the framework totally incapable prevent from these mistakes. So also take a look. And I think I'm done with all my materials. Again, more questions? So yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you, Michael. So as a small commentary, since Michael's discussing materials, these are going to be shared on our chapter website. Both the slide decks and the recordings will be shared on the chapter website. You may or may not be familiar with the fact that ISACA International right now, our audience may or may not be familiar with the fact that ISACA International is updating all of the chapter websites around the globe. So between the beginning of this month and through the end of this month, we actually cannot make updates to our website. So we went ahead and put all the content on there in advance. And that means that we won't be able to share these slide decks and recordings until about 2 weeks from now, at which time they will be presented onto our website, and they'll be accessible to everybody. So we ask that you bear with us for just a little bit while we're getting ready to share that information. And we look forward to the changes that are coming from ISACA International as well. So Michael, there's a question that's coming in that I wanted to present to you. And it's for smaller companies, do you recommend starting with the tactical compliance approaches rather than tackling the large strategic frameworks?
Yeah, I would definitely suggest to start with tactical. It will help right away. So it will help. It's easy to implement. It's not, you know, top down. It could be implemented at any, you know, at any stage. Just run and the report. Like if you take, so like you take any benchmark, and I'm sure that you know how to do it, but just go to CIS. It's CISecurity.org, I believe. And if you in Azure, for example, you search for Azure benchmarks, Azure configuration benchmark. If you run in data centers, you could say, and you run Windows, for example, you could go and get Windows cybersecurity, Windows hardening benchmarks, or Linux. So you know, CIS is saying that out-of-box configuration of Windows or Linux is 60% hardened. So there are more things to do. And it's very cool when you, and there are tools to run those things automatically for certain things. You could just go and do it manually first time to show the report. Then you show the report to management and you're showing all the holes and all the risks that you do, and then you say, hey, let's deal with this because it's very easy to show. And then, guys, why don't we get certification? Because third-party audit is kind of give that protection that you say that we are doing all the reasonable things to implement safeguards. So like it's much easier to start tactically because they are not hazy, they're very prescriptive, and you could easily audit them even manually, generate a report, show it to management, bam, done.
Yeah, I really like that question and response, Michael, because I know that a lot of clients that I've dealt with before for SOC reports are small startup SaaS providers, and they're moving to that next level, and maybe they have financial institutions as their clients or something like that. And so as a result of that, they're going through their first SOC report, and you may be dealing kind of just like you were saying in your presentation. You may be dealing with this team that's anywhere from, let's say, like 8 to 20 people. They're very small, and you talk to them about user provisioning and onboarding and offboarding and reviewing permissions in the system and that kind of thing. And they're like, oh no, we use Google and we use AWS and that's it, right? And we don't, we review every single time we log in. We're reviewing everybody, right? And then just like you said, one thing kind of leads to another, and next thing you know, they're hiring more people and they're kind of losing track of it very quickly. So it can be a difficult and interesting challenge to discuss with clients who are exactly in that type of scenario, right? Have you found that there's some good ways of showing the value to people in conversation?
Yeah, definitely. Again, anything that you do formally and following any prescribed framework, standard, whatever it is, you just show, guys, it's not a I had a funny conversation with CISO of a large financial firm, and he basically showed me his whiteboard, and he said, this is like my cybersecurity program. And I'm like, this is like 70% of NIST. Why didn't you take NIST? And by saying that I'm just taking NIST, I mean, there is a huge credibility behind these organizations. So yeah, I mean, I would definitely recommend take something, doesn't matter what it is, and just use that. We also have another question. What are your thoughts on use of public API libraries? If I yeah, sure. Yeah, Roberto, sounds like you wanted to answer, right?
No, I was going to read you the question, but you read it. You read it before I got a chance, so that's great.
So there are two aspects of it, and I don't know what it is exactly about. So one, it could be, can you trust like open source libraries? And it's huge question of the whole like supply chain management. And yeah, we saw examples when a third party would publish a library with the same name in totally like different Git location, and people would pick up the same library with a backdoor in it. And it's like huge question about like publicly available like API libraries, like it has to be controlled. I mean, it really scares me. And it really scares me when developers are basically, oh, I started using this. Where did you get it? I mean, oh, it's cool. It's a new thing. It's and you like, oh my God, like they can bring up like vulnerabilities. And this is why things like OWASP are very important, because it recommends to use their like ZAP tool in the end of the deployment, I mean, before the deployment to basically verify those vulnerabilities. And this is why dynamic and static code analysis is very important. But these questions also mean there is another huge subject in the industry about securing public web APIs. And for example, you're a provider of some important information and you have subscribers, so publish this information through JSON or whatever it is. You need to secure it somehow. And usually everybody wants two-phase authentication, but sometimes the communication between your web API and the subscriber is in the batch mode. So you need to share, keys and cryptography, and you have to rotate keys, and you have to rotate keys for all your subscribers. And certainly some companies are helping you to do that. And there is like, I think AWS API gateway, and there are a bunch of others, but it's a very, very complex question of how to secure your public API interfaces, how to make sure that whomever you provide information are real subscribers and have rights to pull that information. So it's a serious question. So this particular question again sparked like two different conversations. I don't know which one was related, but both of them are very important and very, very difficult to deal with. So again, like these public clouds, they solve so many issues, but adding complexity and adding like different layers of consideration. So it's a scary world, but there is hope.
And Rick responded back that he was actually thinking of both sides of that question that you spoke to. So thank you. Great answer. Okay. And let's see if there are any final questions before we wrap up this session.
But connect to us through LinkedIn, and I hope like in a year we'll come back and present something new. I mean, something will happen during this year, so I'm sure that we'll have subjects for discussion next year.
Yeah, unfortunately, bad actors seem to keep giving us new things to talk about, right?
Yeah, sure.
Well, wonderful. Okay, then we will go ahead and wrap up here with this afternoon. And just as a reminder to all of our participants, thank you very much, first of all, whether you were with us for 1 day or 2 days or 3 days, it's been a pleasure having you with us for this conversation about hackers versus standards and lawmakers. And we've covered quite a breadth of content throughout these past 3 days, and we hope that you've enjoyed it. And within approximately the next week, we will be going ahead and distributing to you the CPE certificates for either that 1 or 2 or 3 days that you used, that you participated in this session. What we do is we actually pass those logs of the Zoom session over to our director of certification, and that person just goes ahead and cross-references and make sure that you get all the credit that we possibly can give to you for these 3 days for up to 6 hours in CPE credit. So thanks very much to the programming committee in general, but also specifically to Sandra Paras for joining us today and as a co-host in this session. Thanks very much to Yana for all the background coordination from Digital Edge and making sure that this went smoothly. And thanks also very much to Michael for a thought-provoking and thorough presentation today, as well as other days in addition to that. So it's been a pleasure spending the past few days with you. As always, you can reach out to us directly by reaching us at ISACASFL, as in ISACA South Florida.org. So ISACASFL.org has a contact us page there, and you can reach out to us for any questions. You can always email me directly as well president@isacasfl.org. I'll be happy to receive your inquiries and route them to the best of my abilities. So thanks very much, everybody. Have a wonderful afternoon. I hope that you've enjoyed this content, and we look forward to seeing you again in the future soon. Thanks, Sandra. Thanks, Yana. Thanks, Michael. Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.